All right, what's up, everybody? Black and Gold Breakdown on a Monday, July 8th. Appreciate y'all tuning in. If you're not already, subscribe to the channel. We are, less than 20 subs away from getting to 1,200. So go and do that. That would make my little heart very, very happy. Appreciate y'all tuning in. The biggest news of the day for the Steelers in a time in a time of the year where there's not much news to come by. Cornerback Cam Sutton received his suspension from the NFL, and he will be suspended for the first 8 games of the 2024 season. And if you are, somewhat oblivious to everything that happened, back in March, he was accused of domestic violence in Florida. Police in Florida couldn't find him for a little bit. He turned himself in. Originally, the charges were felony charges. They got dropped down to misdemeanor charges. And he was released in the midst of this by the Detroit Lions. And the Steelers signed him at the beginning of June. And now we are here, and he is suspended for the first 8 games of the year. Not surprising, I would say. That was kind of my initial reaction. We knew a suspension was going to come. It was just a matter of when. And with training camp less than 3 weeks away, this makes sense that they would announce it around this time. And in terms of, I'll say this though, in terms of the length of the suspension, that surprised me a little bit. Usually and I'm not condemning the NFL by any means when I say this, if you're accused of, and there's, sufficient evidence that shows that, a domestic incident took place, then there should be hefty punishment for it. But thinking back to previous domestic violence situations or accusations or things of that nature, I believe when Tyreek Hill was accused, had his whole situation, I want to say he only got 4. So comparing it, to other situations, and again, every situation is different. Totally understand that. I'm just providing some context for, some other guys that have been in similar situations and faced suspension. So 8 games for Cam Sutton, and the Steelers' bye week is week 9. So he will not be eligible to play in a regular season game until week 10 against the Commanders. And a lot of people were against the signing to begin with because of everything going on. That's understandable. I wasn't necessarily a huge fan of it either. I'm also not going to sit here and, pretend I know everything that happened. I wasn't there. So I'll say what I've said since, everything went down. If he did the things that he is being accused of doing, then yes, he should absolutely be punished accordingly so. And 8 games without, he's not appealing this either. I think that's somewhat telling. And again, trying not to be too speculatory on the situation and everything, but 8 games for Cam Sutton, not going to be eligible to play until week 10. So on the field wise, there's been a lot of conversations on Twitter and social media and what have you of, okay, what are the Steelers going to do now at nickel? And my thing is that they don't necessarily need to make a move right away. Like, you have an entire training camp, you have an entire preseason to see what a lot of these guys that you already have can do. So let's see what Beanie Bishop can do. Let's see what Darius Rush can provide. Anthony Averett's a vet that you brought in. You got Corey Trice, who's more likely going to be on the outside, but so I wouldn't rush to sign anybody, especially when every year, during the preseason or right after preseason concludes, there's always a few handfuls of cuts. I mean, the Steelers had one last year where Desmond King was surprisingly cut by the Texans. Now, the Steelers signed him and then proceeded to do nothing with him, but a situation like that could arise. I saw some people say, oh, maybe Patrick Peterson. No reason for that. And again, I got nothing against Patrick Peterson at all. He won the I can't remember the name of the award, but for the guy who was like always really cordial with the media, great dude. It's just like he's in his mid-30s. He's slow. Like there's no reason to do that. Just my opinion. Shannon Sullivan was another name that was kind of thrown around, and like okay, maybe, but I think that you have guys on the roster who, like Beanie Bishop, looked tremendous throughout the offseason program. You got Darius Rush, who's going into his first full season with the team, who gave you valuable minutes down the stretch last year. I think that they should see what they currently have. That's why you have a training camp. That's why you have a preseason for stuff like this. See what you have, assess it then. And if you feel like, okay, we should probably still bring in somebody else, then do it then. But I would like to see what Beanie Bishop can do. I would like to see what Darius Rush can do in year two. If they, work Corey Trice into an inside role and try to see what he can provide in the slot, then okay. Anthony Averett as well. Like they've got plenty of guys that are hungry for an opportunity. Josiah Scott as well. Grayson Arnold. Like plenty of dudes that are going to be vying for playing time and a roster spot. I would rather see what they currently have rather than rush into signing somebody or trying to trade for somebody. Just my thoughts. See a lot of people in the comments, so I'll get to those real quick. No, they would never admit it, but I would be shocked if the Steelers didn't have an inkling when they got him about a range of games it could be. Maybe. Yeah, I wouldn't know. Maybe, I don't know. It's possible. By the way, congratulations, Jared, on the. Oh, I appreciate that, man. Yeah. For those who don't follow me on Twitter, which you absolutely should, at JBaileyNFL on Twitter. I'm no longer. It's a weird situation with USA Today. I feel like I can speak publicly about it. A lot of changes being made there. Don't necessarily know what the direction is going forward. So I am now with the Sporting News, where you'll find the majority of my national, league-wide stuff now. So appreciate that. A lot of people have reached out over the past few days, which has been really sweet. So appreciate that. Excited to work with all the people there, and first piece for them will be coming in the coming days. So that'll be, once it's up and ready, I'll be posting about it and whatnot. Really in-depth piece about the Buffalo Bills offense. So yeah, go read it when it comes out. I'll be posting a lot about it. Appeal to 4. Cameron Sutton has already said he's not appealing. So again, I'm not trying to speculate too much, but more often than not, these dudes appeal these things, and he did not. So maybe sign Simmons and just run 3 safety looks. I mean, you can't just run 3 safety looks 100% of the time. Patrick Peterson and Russell Gage get the. Yeah. Again, I got nothing against Patrick Peterson. Again, great dude. Great dude. I just don't think he has a ton to offer on the field anymore. So just my thoughts. If Shannon Sullivan ends up coming back, okay, that's, whatever. He's fine. Played relatively okay in his role last year. Wasn't great, but you're not finding any great free agents at this point in the offseason. So again, if they do add any sort of big name, it would be, near the end of the preseason, if a surprising guy gets cut. But again, I don't think that they should rush into signing anybody right away, because you have guys that are hungry for an opportunity. See what they can do in camp. Again, Beanie Bishop looked really solid in OTAs and minicamp. I would like to see, like I said it when they signed him. Remember, as a UDFA, like don't be shocked if he's your week 1 starter at nickel. Now, obviously, that was a month before they signed Cam Sutton. But I mean, this is a guy who was a consensus All-American last year. I think he led the nation in passes broken up, had 4 picks. Like, don't sleep on Beanie Bishop. Let's see what he can do during camp, during preseason. That's a dude. I mean, by the way, now that's a dude you pay attention to during these 3 preseason games. And when you're, reading, all of the beat reporter stuff, or whether you're reading my stuff or watching my stuff, like, pay attention to who gets talked about. Because I promise those are going to be guys that everybody's going to be keeping an eye on to see, okay, is anybody standing out and rising above the rest to be the week 1 starter at nickel? So, and again, there's a lot of guys that will be hungry for that spot. So, I think it's going to be good for Beanie Bishop, good for Darius Rush. I mean, those are 2 guys that I really want to see on the field. I was a big Darius Rush guy when he was coming out of South Carolina last year. So I was pretty excited when the Steelers scooped him up. And again, Beanie Bishop looked really good throughout the offseason program. So overall, I think that you can try and see what you have. And again, if you come away from, or even if you get deep into camp and get through a preseason game or 2, you're like, yeah, man, we need to find somebody. Then okay, that's fine. But don't panic. And by the way, if there's anybody who isn't going to panic, it's Omar Khan. I mean, we've seen that he's been notoriously patient with these kinds of things. I mean, there's still not a number 2 receiver on the roster. So we're, again, less than 3 weeks away from camp. And still wondering what's going to happen there. So I think that they'll be patient with it. And, last year they had a lot of different people come in and contribute. Eric Rowe came in near the end of the year and played really well. They had guys like Elijah Riley, Trenton Thompson all play well in their respective roles. So we've seen that they are capable of adding guys and getting them equipped and ready to go on short notice. So we'll see what comes of it. But again, Cam Sutton suspended for the first 8 games. And again, Pittsburgh knew that this was going to be coming when they signed him. And again, I was a little bit surprised at how long it was. I'm not condemning the NFL for making it that long. If they did their investigation and said, okay, 8 games is suffice, then okay, so be it. But I was trying to think of like the last domestic violence related issue that got a suspension that was that long. So, and again, if they feel that it's a sufficient amount of games, then okay, 0 arguments for me on that. It's always difficult when that's the topic of conversation, and when it, especially when it takes place on the team that you root for, kind of waters become a little bit murky in that situation. So, and again, if they feel like that's the correct amount of games, and they did their investigation and said, okay, we feel like he deserves this, then all right. And the fact that he's not appealing, I think that could say something. We'll see. Was Ray Rice the last, or is there someone in between that range? Maybe. No, there was a Giants kicker that was pretty much ended his career because some vile stuff came out about him. I think with Ray Rice, though, it's much different to like see it on video, right? And again, how do I want to say this? It shouldn't take that, you know what I mean? But obviously seeing it and hearing about it are 2 very different things. So I think that's why Ray Rice's was so especially egregious, because like we all saw it. For a lot of these guys, like, yeah, we don't see it happen. Sometimes we see the aftermath and it's gross. Was it Greg Hardy? A gross case and a vile human being. And then Dana White signed him to the UFC because Dana White will sign anybody. So I think that's why Ray Rice's was so like, okay, yeah, dude, you're done because we all saw it. How many games was Watson suspension for the Browns? His 11. It was 11 games or 10 games, 10 or 11. Because I feel like it was 11 because it was a weird number that just so happened that his first game back was in Houston against the Texans. It was like, all right, very, very good NFL. It's great. Wasn't Tyreek's cut on video? No, Kareem Hunt's was, where he kicked a woman. So, yeah. Because, yeah, the Chiefs had Hill and Hunt in back-to-back years, if I'm not mistaken. Mixon was bad, dude. Yeah, Joe Mixon's, his was in college. It was ahead of the draft. I think it was his last year at Oklahoma. Yeah, his video of that was bad too. And again, that's another one of those things where, yeah, we all saw it, and doesn't make it, for the victims who we don't see, that doesn't make it any less bad. But when you do see it, you're like, oh man, we gotta be better than this, So it's hard. It's especially, like I said, when it's a team that you root for, who signs a dude who is caught up in this, and you're like, oh man, I don't necessarily love this. It's hard. Bet Rooney told him not to appeal. Maybe. I don't know. I think that happened when he was the Mixon thing happened when he was still at Oklahoma. So they couldn't really punish him for anything because it didn't happen when he was in the NFL. Now, it hurt his draft stock. And he slipped in the draft a lot because, I think he was projected to be a first-round pick, and then he slid because everybody saw the video and was like, oh, yeah, we can't take him. So, yeah. And again, it's not fun talking about domestic violence and a guy who's accused of this. So I understand that, this can get murky. So I apologize. But Cam Sutton suspended 8 games for violating the NFL's personal conduct policy. And again, back in March, he was accused of domestic violence by his girlfriend. Someone on the run in Florida for a little bit, turned himself in. The original charges were felony charges. They got dropped down to misdemeanor charges. He was released by the Lions, and then the Steelers picked him up at the beginning of June. And it was only a matter of time before a suspension was handed down. So his first game eligible to play with the Steelers will be in Week 10 against the Commanders, because the Steelers' bye week is Week 9. So we're going to see who rises to the top of this Steelers cornerback crop, whether it's going to be Beanie Bishop, Darius Rush, who I think are going to be the two that will get the most looks at nickel, to see who can be that Week 1 starter at that spot. So those are going to be names to circle during training camp. So whenever you're reading, stuff from Steelers Now, Penn Live, Trib Live, whatever you read, maybe stuff from me, watching me, whatever it may be, those are going to be names to look for. See who's doing well in the cornerback battle. That's going to be something that now gets paid attention to all training camp and all preseason. Kind of off topic. Is that a new Giants helmet? It is a new Giants helmet. Indeed it is. And then the Dolphins one was on my desk. So it was like in a case, but I was like, I want to put it on the wall. I want to display because nobody else can see it but me, and I don't necessarily care if I'm the only one who sees it, but it looks better in the backdrop. So, and then I moved 2 more down here. I had the Bengals and the Browns ones, but got to move them over. So, yeah, it's becoming more complete. And then eventually we'll try to fill up more over here with different helmets. I'm going to have to move Jeff Hardy somewhere else, but that's okay. Yeah. And then behind me, the Broncos and the Seahawks one. So, yeah, all the helmets. Well, like I said, I think that Darius Rush and Beanie Bishop are going to be the 2 biggest names to watch during the training camp battle for this. Obviously, Cam Sutton's still going to be at camp, and he's going to be able to be there in the preseason. But going to have to really pay attention to who's going to fill his shoes while he's gone. If you had to pick right now the starting slot cornerback, who would you go with? I'd probably say Darius Rush, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was Beanie Bishop. Just because he was very good last year. Don't know how he went undrafted. Sometimes these things just happen and these guys fall through the cracks. See it every year. Plenty of guys go undrafted that end up being really good. So it wouldn't surprise me if it's Beanie Bishop. But I think, putting my Steelers brain to use real quick, starting an undrafted rookie over a guy, who was there last year doesn't feel like something that they would do. I mean, how we all remember last year when we were all screaming to put in Broderick Jones and to put in Joey Porter Jr. Like, you drafted him for a reason, play him. So, like I said, I think it could be Beanie Bishop, but I think that Ty would go to Darius Rush just because he was there last year and all of that. Then again, when they drafted Trey Norwood a few years ago, he started week 1 at the nickel spot against Buffalo. Because that was the year that they were trying to figure out, okay, who's it going to be? Is it going to be Trey Norwood? Eventually, Arthur Millette was the guy who got the job. And then he wanted more money, and the Steelers didn't give it to him, so he went to Baltimore. So, yeah, that was a weird year. And I think that would be more of the exception rather than the rule where they're starting a 7th-round rookie at nickel. But there is precedent for it. And again, 7th round and undrafted aren't the same thing, but they're, it's pretty close. So we'll see. Sparks. It was hard. Was the tragedy this weekend? Lost 3 young men. Yeah. Yeah, it sucks, man. Don't drink and drive. I got so many of these things that happen. So many people that still drink and drive. And how many times throughout the year do we see something and it's like, yeah, drunk driver. And you're like, God damn it, man. Like, really? And in this case, it cost 3 people their lives. And Kyrie Jackson was one of them. And it sucks. And for some reason, people just continue to do it. And yeah, heartbreaking stuff, man. It's not great. Hate to see that happen. I saw a lot of people, obviously from the Vikings organization, but also people who, were, playing with him at the Senior Bowl, teammates from Oregon, teammates from a bunch of different places. Like it stinks. A guy who a year younger than me, has all of his stuff, everything that he wanted to be, was coming to fruition, just got drafted and then taken away just like that. It's not fair. So, yeah, horrible stuff. Don't drink and drive. Don't be stupid. So, yeah, sad stuff all around. So don't drink and drive. No easy way to segue from that, but I'm gonna. A lot of people were talking about Josiah Scott throughout the offseason program and asking how he looked. I would have to go back and really see anything that I could find on Josiah Scott. Was it Graylin Arnold or Grayson Arnold? I cannot remember his first name, so forgive me. He's another guy that's going to be in the mix for this. So there's going to be a lot of fringe roster guys who are going to just be fighting for a spot on the final 53, but also guys like Bishop and Darius Rush, who both looked good during OTAs and minicamp, that are going to now be vying for a potential week 1 starter role, which that is, a whole different thing in and of itself. It's also going to be interesting to see how many corners they decide to keep for week 1. Anthony Averett. Yeah, he's going to be another one that can be in the mix. I'd have to go back and see how many, how often he played in the slot. I'm pretty sure he has, though. But even then, I mean, if you're a guy like Anthony Averett, who's a fringe roster guy, and they say, hey, man, we're going to give you a chance, but it's going to be at nickel. He's not going to, what's he going to do? Say, nah, So even if he hasn't really played there before, I mean, I'm sure he's going to be like, look, man, I'll do whatever I can if it gets me on a roster. So Anthony Averett will be in that mix. And again, Rush and Bishop, Arnold, Scott, they have a lot of guys already in-house that are going to be fighting for that spot. Which again, that's why I don't think that they should be trigger happy and try to bring back a Patrick Peterson, because I don't think he really adds anything at this point besides, just a veteran presence. So I don't think that would be. I certainly wouldn't bring him back. And again, nothing against Patrick Peterson as a dude, he's a great dude, but I just don't think he has anything to offer on the field anymore. So they got a lot of in-house options right now to try to make this thing work. But again, with not having a number 2 outside receiver, now not having, I would say this, their cornerback room, their fight for the nickel spot is in a much better spot than their receiver situation is. Because Darius Rush, his snaps were limited, but he at least showed you a little bit of something. And he's looked good throughout the offseason program. There's a lot of potential with Beanie Bishop. You got 2 guys that I would feel pretty good about starting week 1 in Rush and Bishop. Anthony Averett maybe too, because he's a veteran and has been around the block. So I feel much, much better about their nickel situation right now than I do about their receiver situation. No Sullivan. Shannon Sullivan was fine. And again, if they go through camp and early on in the preseason are none of these guys are probably going to be able to do this for 10 weeks, then if you want to give Shannon Sullivan a call, then sure. I would rather them call Shannon Sullivan over Patrick Peterson, though. That would be my preference. Patrick Peterson will be signed by Pittsburgh after the 53-man roster is out because the salary is not guaranteed for the season then. Even then, man, I don't need that, I just don't think there's anything there anymore. I think he would basically just be an extra, a glorified coach who dresses. Pat Pete was Dunzo last year. Yeah. And the only time that Peterson looked really solid was when they moved him back to safety. And the final 3 games of the year. Ross Cockrell or Steven Nelson. Ross Cockrell, what a name pool that was. Steven Nelson just announced his retirement. So shout out Steven Nelson. Happy retirement to you. Steven Nelson, very cool dude. Came on the channel 2020. Yeah, because it was the year that they started off 11-0. So one of the cooler dudes that I've spoken to. Got a lot of love for Steve. So very solid throughout his entire career. Every stop that he went to, just a good starting corner. Kansas City, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, Houston. All around, just a solid player. Nice career, decade-long career. Tip of the cap to him. Yeah, love Steven Nelson. You think with the focus on Sutton that they will quietly go get a wide receiver now? I mean, I don't think it will be quiet, because if they make a big acquisition, I mean, that's going to be news. I just don't necessarily think it's going to be a huge acquisition. I think it'll probably be Burks or Mechie. If I had a bet right now, it would be Treylon Burks. That would just be my guess. Which, I mean, fine. Better than having Van Jefferson at, the number 2 boundary receiver. So everyone thought the same about Mason Rudolph last year. I tried to tell them, just now, mark my words. Maybe, man. I just don't think that Patrick Peterson's very good. I have a hunch Steelers Twitter will still explode regardless if it's a big name receiver. I think once they finally do make a move, regardless of who it is, it'll just be like a sense of like, oh, about time. Like we can stop talking speculating now. Like there's definites. We know who it is. We can focus on that rather than wondering who it's going to be. So regardless of who it is, I think there's going to be a sense of like, okay, at least we know who it is. That's just my thoughts. And for all of the slot names that they've brought in, I'm surprised they haven't. Like they brought in, notice like I like Scotty Miller, but like you could have brought in like a Hunter Renfrow instead. I would have liked that. Just my opinion on that. Again, no disrespect to Scotty Miller. I really like Scotty Miller. It's just, if they were going to keep bringing in, veteran names like that, I think Hunter Renfrow would have been a better one. By the way, he's still a free agent. And if he played outside, I would love to have him in a Steelers uniform, but he is very much a slot guy. So it doesn't make a ton of sense. But I think it'll be Burks, if I'm guessing. Really hoping it's not Michael Thomas. I've said that a lot throughout this whole process. That's just a name I don't want it to be Michael Thomas, man. He's not good. I would have thought they went for Zacchaeus over Scotty in free agency. Yeah, they didn't go for... I've had this theory for a little bit. It's just I think that they thought, okay, Mike Williams, we've got a visit scheduled. He's not leaving. George Pickens and Mike Williams be the top two. And then Mike Williams went to the Jets first, and they gave him a lot of money. So then they were kind of scrambling. Brought in all guys that are basically the same. Not necessarily the same player, but the same backstory where it's like, okay, they were good 3 years ago. Let's see if there's anything left. It's kind of blindly throwing darts at balloons and hoping that one of them would pop. Yeah, Marquez Callaway's there, and they did release Denzel Mims, so he's no longer in the conversation for it. And then he signed right away with Jacksonville, I think. I think that's where he's at now. So, yeah, I mean, Van Jefferson, Scotty Miller, Quez Watkins. Oh, yeah, you signed Scotty Miller and Quez Watkins, but you didn't try to get Hunter Renfrow. That doesn't make sense to me, man. He was trying to convince me Calvin Austin would be our savior. Whatever. A lot of people really liked how he looked in the offseason program, but he's not an outside guy. I don't know what his overall role will be, but it'll be something. He impressed a lot of people during the offseason program. I just don't think that a guy that small is going to be able to be an outside threat. It's fast. And if I'm going to be curious to see how they divide everything up, because, I mean, maybe there's a world where they go George Pickens and Roman Wilson on the outside and put Calvin Austin in the slot. I would feel much more comfortable with that than going George Pickens, Van Jefferson, Roman Wilson. I would rather them work Roman Wilson more toward being an outside guy. Because remember coming in, and I'm not saying that Roman Wilson is going to end up being this guy, but one of the bigger knocks on Justin Jefferson coming into the league was that he was a slot guy. They didn't know if he was going to be able to make the transition to the outside. And obviously that he proved them all wrong. And I'm not saying that Roman Wilson's going to end up being Justin Jefferson. Just saying that to say that, guys who are predominantly slot guys can make the transition to the outside. And he played some outside in Michigan. He was just predominantly a slot guy. But I would feel much more comfortable if they went Pickens and Wilson on the outside and put Calvin Austin in the slot. That would make I would be much more at ease in that case. And when they wanted to go 4 wide, then you can kick Roman Wilson to the inside and have Van Jefferson on the outside. Or hell, even if you wanted to have, Van Jefferson as like a big power slot and keep Wilson on the outside, like there's a few different things you could do. A few different things you could do. But I just don't think that Calvin Austin is big enough to be on the outside. So I'd rather have, if you're going to split anybody out wide, make it Roman Wilson and keep Calvin Austin in at the slot. I'm going to stay on for another 5 minutes or so. So if you have any other questions, comments, get them all in. Not a Pirates fan, but pretty cool that Paul Skeens made the All-Star. Yeah, that's pretty neat. Pretty neat. And by the way, the Pirates did their job. They got us through July. Now we just got to wait a few more weeks until training camp starts. I think we roll with what we got at wide receiver, save the money. You must be new here, Sparks. So forgive me if I sound like a total a-hole. It's not targeted at you or anything. It's just targeted at this thought process in general. If you don't spend money at the position, then you can't bitch and moan when the position isn't good. You are what you invest in. I've said it countless times on countless outlets, the show very much included. If you can get a high-quality player, then you get a high-quality player, but it's going to cost you high-quality player money. I'm okay with that because nobody's winning games that matter, penny pinching. Can't penny pinch in today's NFL. Okay? You got to spend money. Just how it is. Look at the Rams. They spent a ton of money on players, and it got them a Super Bowl. 49ers, consistently in NFC Championship games in the Super Bowl, and they traded away a lot of draft picks, pay a lot of players, have a lot of studs that they acquired and paid. Like, you can't penny pinch anymore. It's a different NFL. You can't just build solely through the draft and on cheap players and hope that that'll get you through. Can't do it anymore. So if you can get big name players, yeah, you're going to have to pay them, but it makes you better. So I'd rather have, one really, really great player than 4 players that stink at the same position. Need to do whatever necessary to get Jarrett's voice in Omar's circle. I mean, I gotta tell you, man, I think Omar has that mentality. I really think he does. Omar Khan is not Kevin Colbert, and he showed that really showed it a little bit last year, but this year especially. Where he's like, yep, Kenny Pickett, you're gone. We're not bringing back Mr. Trubisky. We're not going to bring back Mason Rudolph. Going to have a brand new quarterback room. We're going to spend money on Patrick Queen. We're going to sign Russell Wilson and trade for Justin Fields. We're going balls to the wall. We don't care. So I'd like to think that he's got some of that mindset. I saw somebody edited CeeDee Lamb, did like a jersey swap and put CeeDee Lamb in a Steelers jersey. And I got to say, looks pretty good. CD tweeted something. He's doing a football camp for kids. Yeah, I think he does it every year. He's done it the past couple of years. And somebody had said, oh, maybe, we'll see if anybody asks about the contracts, his contract situation. He said, if you ask about the contract situation, your question's not getting answered. I'm doing this for the kids. So I thought that was kind of neat. But yeah, I would love CeeDee Lamb in a Steelers uniform. $32 million is a whole lot of cash. I hear you, man. Sure. But not all $32 million of that is going against the cap. There's ways that they can bundle it. And I've used this example numerous times, but it's the easiest one I can use. Jared Goff is making the most cash this year of anybody, but his cap hit is, I believe, 10th. And next year it's 16th because the Lions bundled it in a lot of ways that doesn't go against the cap. So whether it's, signing bonus and roster bonuses, there's plenty of ways that you can do it where you can pay them that money, but it doesn't hurt you too much against the cap. So if CeeDee Lamb wants that, he's very much worth that. Justin Jefferson's getting $35 million a year, I believe. And CeeDee Lamb wants to be number 2. And with the year that he had last year, he's very much earned that. So if that's what he wants, man, the Steelers are going to have the money to do it. It depends on where you look, but they're projected to have between like 88 and like $96 million, depending on what site you go to next year. They're gonna have a ton of money to do it. So I'm totally cool with that. I see. Yes, there's a lot of Ayuk and Steelers jersey swaps that have been done over the past few months. I need one of the collaborators on the CD Steelers swap. I'll have to look up who it was because I do want to give them credit. But it was a solid swap. Very good. Very, here I think I have the picture saved. Maybe I deleted it. I don't know. But it was a very good swap, and I do want to give them credit for it because it was very nice. But I do think I deleted it. So yeah, I mean, if you go on Instagram and just type in like CD Lamb Steelers, you might be able to find something. I think it might be the same dude who did he did Justin Fields in like a Bumblebee swap. If it's that guy, then I can find him because I asked him if I could use that in a thumbnail because I didn't just want to take it. But I'm looking to see if I can see it, and I can't see it. So I'm going to see if it was that guy. If it was that guy, then we'll give him a shout out real quick because he did very good on it. And I want to make sure that he gets the proper credit for it. Was it this guy? Might have been. Oh, it was this guy. Okay. Designed by Blitz on Instagram. So designed by BLITZ on Instagram. That's a very good edit. I think I should be able to show it to you on here. I'm sure he wouldn't mind the free publicity. So I'll show it to you. So looks pretty good to me. So again, designed by Blitz on Instagram. Very, very good. So go and give him a follow. So it looks pretty good. I'm going to get the CD swap accidentally with a WNBA or female wrestling tweet. No. Yeah, follow me on Twitter at JBaileyNFL for Jared Bailey After Dark when I tweet about WNBA and wrestling baddies. Got to do it, man. The life of a single guy. You know what I did today? I was eating wheat thins with garlic dill hummus and watching Robot Chicken. I don't have a lot going on. It's a slow part of my year. So some of that will be spent talking about how good-looking WNBA players are now. Just what it is. Just what it is. All right. Save for a few more minutes. You got any more questions, comments? And we'll get on out of here. Some house cleaning stuff real quick. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, again, less than 20 away from 1,200. So do that. That would be lovely. Follow me on Twitter at JBaileyNFL. And like I said, in the coming days, there will be my first piece for Sporting News, which is a in-depth look on how the Buffalo Bills changed their identity in the middle of the year offensively and how they did it. So it was a really fun piece. And if you know me, you know that Josh Allen's my favorite player in the NFL. So anytime I get to talk about him and write about him, I enjoy doing it. But this was more of a piece on how Joe Brady's philosophy differed from Ken Dorsey's philosophy and how it helped the Bills. So that'll be coming out in the coming days. And when it does, I will definitely promote it. And it would mean a lot to me if you guys read it. So going to be trying to do some feature stuff as well with certain players. I'm not going to say who just because I don't want to jinx it, but a lot of stuff in the work from that regard. So appreciate it. Oh my goodness, Omar's burner. Thank you so much, man. That was very sweet of you for the super chat. Yes, by the way, if you want to support me and leave a super chat like Omar's burner did, you absolutely can. It's by no means a requirement, but it does make me very happy. And I do appreciate the support. So thank you, man. Very, very nice. You're going to hate me, by the way. So they were wheat thins. They were reduced fat wheat thins because I probably have a body image issue, but that's okay. So it's a battle every day. But yeah, they're good. Garlic dill. I've become a really big hummus guy over the past few months. I usually get the garlic dill, and then I'll do the roasted red pepper. I ordered Mediterranean near me, and they just gave me regular hummus. And I found out I hate regular hummus. I was like, oh, this is not good. But the flavored ones I usually really, really enjoy. So Yeah, wheat thins and hummus is usually a good combo. Wheat thins in general are just good. I think there's a Good Mythical Morning where they taste every wheat thin. So if you're a big wheat thins fan, go watch that. Not yet though. Keep watching this. So thank you, man. I genuinely appreciate that. It's very nice of you. Should do some wrestling stuff once in a while. Maybe. I was thinking about doing like a fantasy booking of John Cena's final run. I was thinking about it. We'll see if I end up doing it. Got a lot of stuff going on. So it's hard for me to kind of wrestling's just kind of like I'll tweet about it and I'll watch it. And it's like my escape stuff. I used to like occasionally fill in on like Fightful streams and hop on with those guys, which is very fun to do. Shout out to Sean Ross Sapp and the crew. They do tremendous work. So I used to do stuff with Fightful. I'm still friends with a lot of the Fightful people. But mostly now just watching and tweeting about it, which is fine with me. What are PFF trying to prove? They have the Steelers O-line ranked 9th in the league. Well, I don't think it's necessarily insane to say that the Steelers could have a top 10 line. Because if you remember a few years ago, the year after the Chiefs lost the Super Bowl to the Buccaneers because their offensive line sucked, they completely redid their offensive line, and it was one of the best in the NFL that year. I think they had like a brand new starting five. Like from the Super Bowl to what they had week 1 the following year is a brand new starting five. And they were instantly great because they drafted Creed Humphrey, they drafted Trey Smith, they started Lucas Niang, who they drafted the year prior. They signed Joe Thuney, and I think they traded for Orlando Brown that year. So yeah, they had a brand new starting five, and they were instantly great. So it's not crazy to say that the Steelers, if these guys all, reach even close to their potential, they could be a top 10 offensive line. Troy Fautani is very good. Obviously, Broderick Jones and Isaac Small are very good. So, like, James Daniels is really good too. The questions, come from, at center and right tackle because they're both going to be rookies. But even then, both really good athletic rookies who can't be worse than what they had last year. So I'm not worried too much about the Steelers' offensive line. I think that they're going to be a good unit. Do they just hate TJ Watt? I don't know, man. I ran into Sam Monson at the combine, and I talked for a quick minute. Sam Monson's a very nice dude, by the way. And I know a lot of people just shit on PFF and hate it because their stuff doesn't necessarily align with liking TJ Watt and likes Myles Garrett better, and whatever. That's fine. But I don't let that cloud my opinion of people. At the end of the day, it's just ball, So I like Sam a lot. I like, a lot of the PFF guys are very cool. Trevor Sycamore is very one of the best in the industry. So I don't have anything against the PFF guys. They just have different opinions, and that's okay. I don't agree with their opinions on, the TJ Watt, Myles Garrett thing and the pressures versus sack debate. I very much disagree with them on it. But I like them. And anytime that, we've interacted, they've been very nice to me. And so I don't have a bad word to say about them as people. I just disagree with their opinions. Concepts, good to see you. Do I watch college football? Very casually. I used to be more into it. I'm a Penn State fan, so I've learned to kind of limit my expectations. But no, I used to be really into it, especially like 2016, 2017, when Penn State was really good with McSorley and Saquon Barkley, and Chris Godwin was there. And they had a lot. They just had dudes. Juwan Johnson was really good in 2017. They had a bunch of defensive studs. So in that window of time, I was really into it. Growing up, I was really young, I was really into them. They won the Big Ten one year. Was it 2005? They went to the Rose Bowl and beat Florida State. Michael Robinson was the quarterback, who then eventually was a running back for the 49ers and the Seahawks in the NFL. Derek Williams was a receiver. Jordan Norwood, who played in the league for a little bit. Deion Butler, Tony Hunt. And then the defense was loaded because they had Paul Posluszny, who played in the NFL for a long time, Tim Shaw, Connor Shaw, Dan Connor, eventually Sean Lee. So, I mean, I used to be really, really big into Penn State. And I still, watch them on Saturdays, but more casual than like die hard now. Give us your college football bracket one day. Well, now it's bigger, right? I'll say this, though. When everybody was like all like bitching and moaning that they put Alabama in, I was like, yeah, they put Alabama. You think that they were going to leave out SEC champion Alabama from the college football playoff? I didn't necessarily agree with it, but like everybody was like, oh, how could that? You really didn't think they were going to put in Alabama? Really? So I'm glad that they're expanding the college football playoff because I thought 4 teams was stupid and just too small. But yeah, college football has become very much more casual for me. Still enjoy it to an extent, but I'm not in the weeds with it. X, yeah, no, appreciate you tuning in. Ohio State should win. They loaded up in the transfer portal. Yeah, like I said, I know nothing about that stuff, man. I'm oblivious to that. Jared, were you the guy who was outside Art Rooney's house with the air horn yelling, "Here we go, Steelers"? A lot of people tweeted at me with that. I think I quoted too. I was like, yeah, my bad. No, I was not the guy outside of Art Rooney's house with an air horn. That was it made me laugh a good deal, though. I thought that was very funny. PFF based in Ohio is what makes sense that they made up a reason for Miles. Yeah, again, I don't agree with that whole pressures versus sacks thing. But all the dudes have always been pretty cool to me, so I don't have bad things to say about them or anything like that, Omar led the league in peekaboo. Yeah, those are always my favorite memes, by the way, like Steelers fans who come up with stuff like that. One that I saw was that State Farm commercial with the dollar on a fishing pole. I was like, oh, you almost had it. They said, oh, there's Myles Garrett. So stuff like that makes me laugh. But all right, I think that's a good place to cut it. X, I know you joined late. But yeah, the synopsis real quick, just to wrap it all up. Cam Sutton suspended 8 games by the NFL, violating the personal conduct policy. And now we're going to see who rises to the top of this thing. I don't think that the Steelers should be trigger happy and go bring back a Patrick Peterson right away. I think that this is why you have a training camp and a preseason to see, okay, Beanie Bishop, show us something. Darius Rush, Anthony Averett, Graylin Arnold, Josiah, show us something. And if you get, into the preseason, through the first game or second game, heading into the final week of preseason, you're like, yeah, we still need to get somebody, then okay, then do that. But right now, I would like to see them just kind of be patient, see what these guys can do, because both Beanie Bishop and Darius Rush look tremendous during the offseason program. So those are going to be names to pay attention to from your favorite media outlets and from me as we head into training camp. I don't know what days I'm going to be there yet. That is something that will be figured out in the coming weeks on what days the Steelers let me in. So we'll report back once I get the exact dates for that. But if you're going to be there on the days I'm going to be there, yeah, maybe, say hi on the way out, shoot me a text. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, don't be afraid to. Don't do it during practice because you can't come on the field. But afterwards, if you see me, walking to my car or something, give me a wave. I'll say hey. I'll take some pictures. It'll make me feel like a local celebrity. It'd be pretty cool. So yeah, if you're gonna be there, like I said, I will let you know the days I will be there. Once I find them out myself. But yeah, until then, subscribe to the channel. Tomorrow on the Pump Fake, me and my friend John Hendricks will be doing the final division previewing the NFC South. You can go back and watch last week's show with Sean Merriman, former sack leader in the NFL and All-Pro, talking a lot about different quarterbacks and just kind of the quarterback market and the money situation. So a lot with Tua Tagovailoa and Dak Prescott, talking a little bit about the Bills. I asked him about the Steelers and whatnot. So yeah, good stuff there last week with Sean Merriman. You can go watch on the channel. And then Trivia Bowl. Did another Trivia Bowl last week. Gonna try to do another one this week. So a lot of good stuff coming from me. And then, like I said, first written pieces for the sporting news will be coming out very soon. So follow me on Twitter at JBaileyNFL for all of it. And I'll be back Wednesday, because remember, we're doing these every other day now until we get to camp. And then we'll probably resume the everyday stuff. And then once the season starts again, we'll figure out the process for it. But if every day is in the works and it's wanted, then we could probably resort back to that, considering there's never a dull day during the season. So we can probably make that work. But until then, I'll see you guys Wednesday. We'll figure out what we're talking about then. But appreciate y'all for tuning in. Subscribe to the channel. I'll see you guys in a few days.